Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today. It is great to have you with us on this Tuesday. Dave Revson, Shimmy Gray Miller. This is a big day. It is always fun to see greatness rewarded. And
it's like Christmas. I felt like last night was Christmas Eve. I was so excited to get here today to talk about this.
All right. Well, we are excited to have you here. And, of course, your Christmas continues. You'll head up for the Big Ten Women's Tournament after this. It is an enormous week, and I always think this is a fun way to get it going. Again, with the awards, we're going to run through everything here with Shimmy, get her thoughts. Let's start with our big story. It is the first team all Big Ten picks. There are 10 players in all. Interestingly enough, the media and the coaches agreeing on all 10. You had two players who were unanimous picks on both teams, Caitlin Clark and Mackenzie Holmes. J.C. Sheldon was a unanimous choice of the coaches. The rest of the group, Ohio State's Cody McMahon, Nebraska's Alexis Markowski, Indiana's Sarah Scalia, Michigan's Layla Filia, Sarah Williams of Wisconsin, Maryland Cheyenne Sellers, and Julia Aralt of Michigan State. And in a shocking development, Iowa's Caitlin Clark, the Big Ten Player of the Year for the third straight season. She joins Ohio State's Jessica Davenport as the only players ever to win both the Coaches and Media Player of the Year awards in 3 consecutive campaigns. Clark, the all-time leading scorer in NCAA Division I history for both the men and the women, a player who has truly transformed the game. And Shimmy, we could rhapsodize about her greatness for this entire hour. I mean, we really could, right? She's just an amazing player. But as you put her season into perspective to this point, what do you think about most when you think about Caitlin Clark?
The players that she's lost, the teammates that she's lost, and the fact that she's still able to take what's around her and propel them to greatness while maintaining that huge gap between her and everyone else. You said it when you said that she joins, she's only one of two Big Ten players to ever be 3-time. And you think about some of the great players, women's basketball players that have come through this league that don't have that under the belt. Kelsey Mitchell, Jantel Lavender, her teammate, Megan Gustafson. She is one of two in the entire history of this league to be 3-time Big Ten Player of the Year.
I would also say, and to me, I think and those are great players, right? And I think the difficult thing with Caitlin Clark is you always end up in these comparisons. I hate to compare people to other people, whatever, right? Because everyone is a singular person. But what is amazing to me about Caitlin Clark and the generational nature of her talent is how it has captivated people in a way that really is different than anyone else that we have seen.
I have made that comparison to Kobe Bryant with her.
Yeah. Her
separating factor is her mentality, that Mamba mentality that all these professional athletes like to tattoo, on their arms and get the arm sleeves and all that. She is Mamba mentality, Dave. She does not flinch in pressure, and she is at her best when all eyes are on her and she is able to rise to the occasion. And I just want to go back and misspeak. Megan Gustafson was not her former teammate, her former Hawkeye sister, but she's special, and her separating factor is her mentality and her competitive fire. Yeah. It's unmatched. Unmatched.
I would agree. I mean, she's amazing. I'm delighted to say we're going to talk to her here later in the show. I'm excited to visit with her. I've sat down with her in similar situations a couple times through the years, but obviously it's amazing the way that she has transcended the sport, and really interested to get her perspective on some of that. That being said, I think one of the challenges is you don't want her to overshadow everything else, because this is an amazing league, right? I mean, we have 3 absolutely elite teams in this league, and you have several more who have just had fabulous seasons. You've got 10 players, all of whom, I think it's amazing there was agreement, right, between the coaches and the media. So these players have really separated themselves, these 10. Are there others aside from Caitlin Clark that you really want to highlight for people?
Yeah, I would love to talk about Sarah Scalia from Indiana and the job that she's done. I mean, she's a transfer from Minnesota. She was an all-conference player at Minnesota on a team that wasn't nationally ranked, weren't competing for championships. She goes to Indiana, takes a back seat. She comes off the bench at Indiana, limited role. had to improve her conditioning so that she could play defense at the level that Terry Morin demands, had to become more than just a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. Now this year, she's back in that starting lineup, and she just excelled. She took the additional minutes, the additional role, and she just ran with it. And the thing, when I watch Sarah, as someone who coached her just for 1 year, but I coached her for a year, and what I've noticed the biggest difference is the joy in which she's playing with. She smiles more than I've ever seen her smile, as a player. Just incredibly impressed with the job that she's done at Indiana. I could talk all day about Mackenzie Holmes. I love post players. I can talk all day about any post player.
Yeah.
But just Mackenzie Holmes and just how she continues to just add notches to her belt. She's a pillar of consistency. She's left her legacy at Indiana. Defensive Player of the Year last year, 2-time first team unanimous, All-American, all-time leader in wins, all-time points leader. And then last but not least, Julia Arod. Michigan State is not where they are without this, versatile. Is she a post player? Is she a guard? Is she both? I don't know.
Yeah.
But Julia Arod at Michigan State.
I think her story is so cool because it's just such a testament to perseverance. It's a testament to overcoming adversity, right? She's had injuries and kind of staying where you are, even if for whatever reason it hasn't worked out. And that's not in any way to say, hey, if you want to move in this day and age in college athletics, I totally get it, or in any day and age in college athletics, I get it. But man, to stay where you are and then to be part of a resurgence in the way she has, and for the number, she averaged less than 4 points a game a year ago, right? And now here she is, she's an all-conference player, first team. It's an amazing story.
And look what she's done in the last 5 games. Michigan State needed to win all 5 of those last 5 games. She plays her best in the last 5 games.
Let's get into the all-defensive teams, and Holmes was one of the players named to that all-defensive team. Both the coaches and the media chose a 5-person team. You ended up with 6 players that made it. Holmes joined on the coaches and media teams by Ohio State's Celeste Taylor, Penn State's Leilani Kapanis, and Wisconsin's Sarah Williams. The coaches added IU's Chloe Moore McNeil as their 5th player, while the media went with Sheldon as their 5th player. There was a split in the voting for Defensive Player of the Year. The coaches gave the nod to Celeste Taylor. She was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year last season at Duke. First Buckeye to win it since Amber Stokes a dozen years ago. In conference play, Ohio State allowed more than 12 fewer points per 100 possessions with her on the court than when she was on the bench. The media selected Wisconsin's Williams as its top defensive player. Far and away the conference leader in block shots in Big Ten play. You want to talk about a difference in on the court to on the bench. How about 22 fewer points per 100 possessions for Badgers opponents when she was out there? Just a massive difference. And Shimmy, these are 2 players who had an incredible impact, and again, both really worthy selections.
I think the media actually got it right this time. I'm going with their pick with Sarah Williams, just for the simple fact of the stat that you gave. I called their game, their first 2 games, the game against Purdue, their second game against Purdue, the difference night and day from when she was on the floor and when she wasn't. Celeste Taylor, though, you can't go wrong with her. How about that? Your ACC Defensive Player of the Year, now your Big Ten Player of the Year. You could have easily split that award and given that backcourt, Celeste Taylor and J.C. Sheldon. 2.1 steals per game, 2.2 steals per game. They're like a tandem.
I think where it's interesting is Ohio State clearly needed to get better on defense from a year ago, and so you go into the portal, you get a player who was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and Ohio State got better on defense this year, a huge part of the reason why they had this season they did. Let's get into the second team honorees. There were 14 of them between the coaches and the media. 8 players made both second teams. They are Hannah Stolke, Jazz Shelley, Makira Cook, Maura Joyner, Moore McNeil and Taylor, as well as Kate Martin and Taylor Theory. 4 players were chosen only to the coaches' second team. Those 4 are Jakira Brown-Turner, Ashley Owusu, Dee Dee Hageman, and Destiny Adams, while the media went with McKenna Marisa and Kendall Bostic. The coaches and the media agreeing on the 6th player of the year. It's Michigan State's Theron Halleck. Halleck, the 4th leading scorer for Robin Freilic's team, which made a huge jump this year, earning a double bye in the Big Ten tourney. They finished 9th this season ago. Halleck started just 1 game this season. Her 11.2 points per game were the most of anyone in the conference who started fewer than 10. A split on the freshman of the year. The media going with Mary Ashley Stevenson of Purdue. The New York City native took West Lafayette by storm. First Boiler freshman of the year since her coach, Katie Gerald's, won it 20 years ago. She averaged better than 10 points per game. And the coaches went with Nebraska's Natalie Potts as their freshman of the year. Potts won the Freshman of the Week award 8 times. That is tied for the 3rd most in conference history. She's the 3rd Husker to win Big Ten Freshman of the Year in the last 8 seasons, joining Jessica Shepard and her current teammate, Alexis Markowski. And the coaches and the media agree that Ohio State's Kevin McGuff is the Big Ten Coach of the Year, led the Buckeyes to the outright conference crown. Ohio State with 5 All-Big Ten selections when you include the honorable mentions. 3rd straight year he's led OSU to 25 or more wins. He is the first Buckeye coach to be honored with this award since Jim Foster did it 15 years ago, and he, too, will join us later in the show. All right, Shibby, we mentioned you're headed up to Minneapolis. The tourney gets underway tomorrow. There's so many great storylines. This league has been so good all year. Give us a few of the headlines that you'll be following.
Cody McMahon. Ohio State needs Cody McMahon to show up and show out in Minneapolis if they're going to have a chance to make it back to that championship game like they did last year and beat Iowa. They are at their best when she is at her best. I think we saw that, the difference between the 2 Iowa games. When they beat Iowa, she's 33 points, she's dominant. At Iowa, in Iowa City, she struggled a little bit. Yeah. They weren't going inside to her. They weren't being intentional. So let's see if Ohio State can kind of correct that course, look at some film and say, hey, we're a really good 3-point shooting team, but we are great when we get the ball inside to Cody where no one can guard her.
And you and I were talking about this. There's a lot at stake in terms of NCAA tourney selection seeding, not just for Ohio State, but also for Iowa, kind of jockeying for 1 seeds there.
Right.
So this really matters. Above and beyond, it matters because if you win it, you're a Big Ten champion. But, I mean, it really matters in terms of how this is going to impact these teams heading into the postseason. And we know you're a lot better off heading into the NCAA tournament if you're a 1 than if you're a 2.
You've also got to look at some injuries. We kind of limped to the finish line there. You know, we don't know the status of Mackenzie Holmes and her backup, Lily Meister at Indiana. And Molly Davis, they released a statement saying, you know, maybe she'll play, maybe not. They're working on it. Obviously, those are important players. But I'm going to tell you, Dave, the game that I am really watching is Maryland, Illinois. You've got 2 teams that have a lot to play for. Maryland right now is fighting for their NCAA tournament lives. Right. Illinois is still fighting for relevancy, respect, and to finish strong. So that's the game that I've got circled.
Well, there's a lot of interest in these games. I can tell you that because every single one of them is sold out. So you are one of the lucky few who will get to be there to watch it. Obviously, if you don't have tickets, the Big Ten Network has you covered. Thursday through Saturday, we've got all of the games. Shimmy will be there. Justine Fernandez, Autumn Johnson alongside on the desk. Have a great time.
Thank you, Dave.
A little bit less pressure to watch it this way.
Oh, I'm going to tell you, last night I packed. It's the first time I've ever packed and knowing that I was going to be at the tournament the whole time.
You're going to be there the whole time.
Yes.
Yes, that's the view. But you always pack to be there the whole time,
always.
Right? That's the psychology of it. All right, Shivy, so much more to come on the show. Again, Caitlin Clark, Kevin McGuff, both set to join me. Good insights from both of them on their remarkable campaigns. But next, arguably the biggest game of the year on the men's side is tonight. Trent Meacham sliding in. We're going to break down the biggest keys for what should be a fabulous matchup, Illini and Boilers. As we head to break, a look at the honorable mention, all Big Ten selections. Congratulations to each and every honoree. Keep it here on Big Ten Today.
Who gets 20 assists in one game? He would set a record that still stands today. Nobody's ever had 20 assists in the Big Ten in a single game. And if that's going to be your final game at the Breslin Center, wow, pretty cool way to go out.
I think we won the game by 50 points or something. I know we'll forget. It had to be maybe 5 or 6 minutes left. I remember walking up to Coach and say, hey, man, go sit down. I got it the rest of the way.
Here is Let's the ovation for Mateen, please.
When I first saw Mateen do it, I remember, like, why did he do that?
My reaction was, wow. Wow. Because the fans just went nuts. And it hadn't been done for such a long time since Sean had done it.
Resper did it, but at the same time, you know, sometimes I think when Mateen did it, I think just how big Mateen was, he has that cultural impact.
I mean, I cried. I mean, I really did. We won, at the time, it was their third Big Ten championship in a row.
Those two have been through so much together over Mateen Cleave's 4-year career.
It was his way of saying, I love this school.
My heart, it kind of led me to kiss the floor, which I should have, with all the good things that happened to me at Michigan State.
As Tom said, Cleve's part of 3 Big Ten title teams. That's going to be amazing tomorrow night. Can't wait for that. As we look at our big stat brought to you by Walgreens, it's actually Purdue which leads the way all time in the regular season in the Big Ten in terms of conference titles, 26, including this season. They are 4 ahead of in-state rival Indiana. They could clinch the outright crown with a win over Illinois in Champaign tonight. Top 2 teams in the conference going head-to-head. Trent Meacham is here. These 2 teams already played in West Lafayette. Purdue built a huge lead. Illinois came back and made a game of it. I think it's worth noting Illinois was without Terrence Shannon Jr. in that game. Obviously, he is back now in this one. The scene shifts to Champaign, so a decided home court advantage, obviously, for Illinois. What do you see in this one as Purdue looks to clinch the outright crown and Illinois looks to stay in contention to share it?
This is the biggest game of the conference season so far. Illinois, has a chance if they can get a win here. Obviously, got to win again on Sunday. Hope for a Purdue loss. But tonight, I just look at these 2 teams, and I think it's going to be such a fun game, Dave. Number 2, number 3 most efficient offenses in the country. It's going to be up and down. We're going to see a lot of made baskets. Both teams offensively, too, thrive off mismatches. Obviously, Purdue, Zach Edey, he always has a mismatch. They're going to play through them. It's always, okay, how does the team defend him? That's a question mark. And then Illinois offensively, through Domask especially, but Terrence Shannon in transition, sometimes Coleman Hawkins, they play through their mismatches as well.
You know, it's interesting. In the first game, Purdue put Zach Edey on Ty Rodgers. And now Zach Edey ended up in foul trouble. I think it was a huge part of the reason that Illinois was able to make a run in the game is Zach Edey only ended up playing 23 minutes. He only scored 10 points in the game. But for Illinois, it initially at least, I thought made it hard for them offensively. Again, it's so hard. It's apples and oranges without Terrence Shannon because he makes such a difference. But do you see that being the matchup again? And if so, what has Illinois learned in terms of countering that? Because Purdue's not the only team to try to guard Ty Rodgers with a big man, and we have seen Illinois just plow through people offensively.
Purdue gave the blueprint, did a great job in that game, and that really kind of negates Ty Rodgers a lot. He's done better in subsequent games. Now, he's fallen a bit more out of the rotation. They've gone to Justin Harmon. Luke Goody is a little bit more out of the rotation, but they provided more shooting for the Illini. So I think Edey will definitely start on Rodgers. Now, I look at who's guarding Domask in the half court. Yeah. Okay, obviously Shannon is a beast in transition, but Purdue, 3 smaller guards in Lawyer, Smith, and Jones. One of those guys is guarding Domask. You know Illinois is going to play through him. Obviously, Edey's going to be helping out a lot if he's on Ty Rodgers. But then when Illinois subs in another shooter, it's a different ball game. But those matchups are going to be really critical. And then on the other end of the floor, I would like to see Illinois really be aggressive on Zach Edey. I've said this before, just in general. I think they have the versatility, the lineup to be more aggressive in traps. But I would say the most important matchup for Illinois is not on Edey. He's going to get his, is Braden Smith. Yeah. And I would expect them to put Terrence Shannon on Braden Smith. They've used him against point guards. He's been, almost like blanketed guys. His frame, 6'7", 220, his speed, his quickness. And if he can do a good job on Braden Smith and not allow him to be as effective in ball screen situations, I think that would really bode well for Illinois. Look, Edey's going to get his 25 or 30, but if you can take Smith and not allow him to be so effective, then it's a different ball game.
How important do you think it is the way in which this game is officiated? I mean, you're dealing with Zach Edey, who, as we know, draws more fouls per 40 minutes than any player in the Big Ten, the most of any player in the country. Terrence Shannon is second in the Big Ten in terms of fouls drawn per 40 minutes. Obviously, he does it in a very different way than Zach Edey does. I mean, it's downhill. It's amazing. I was there for the Wisconsin game this weekend. It's incredible, his speed in the open court and how difficult it is for people to get set in front of him. But how important is it, kind of the way that this game is called in terms of determining who wins?
Well, that's when you have guys that are such a focal point that put so much pressure on opposing defense, put so much pressure on the referees, right? With Zach Edey's size and how his physicality, and he does it in a way that he doesn't get called for fouls very much, I think, very effectively. So it's always crucial. I think especially is that a guy like Coleman Hawkins getting into foul trouble, that's different than if you bring Dane Danger in, use up 4 or 5 fouls there. That'll be critical. And obviously, then Shannon can put so much pressure. You know, Edey just had 20 free throws in their most recent game. Shannon's had 16 free throws nights, 19 free throw nights. That can change the ball game. Typically, those guys shoot the ball well from the free throw stripe, so that's huge. And I'd also say just when you think about the paint, putting pressure on their rebounding. That first matchup, Purdue won by 15, the rebounding battle. Both these teams dominate in that. And Purdue, you know, they're going to send a lot of guys to the offensive glass, maybe the best in the country at getting second chance opportunities. Now, if Illinois can rebound and then get out in transition, that's not easy to do. But if Purdue's sending 3-4 guys, now you got to deal with Shannon and Guerrier and Rogers in the open court. That will be critical as well.
You mentioned these are 2 of the 3 most efficient offenses in the country. Illinois is the most efficient offense in the country since February 1st. The flip side of that is they're the least efficient defense in the Big Ten. Now, look, they're winning games. So as I said, I had their game against Wisconsin. I don't think Brad Underwood is overly concerned because I think he believes that they can outscore people. But certainly Purdue is better on the defensive end than Illinois is or has been here recently. How big an issue is this? Not even necessarily just for tonight, but as we kind of spin forward for both these teams, how big an issue is it for Illinois to be so reliant on the offense and to really, I mean, just statistically they've fallen off defensively, but I think just to the naked eye they've fallen off too. Like, throw out the numbers, they're not getting stops.
No, and we were just talking, I would prefer to have a team that thrives offensively, maybe struggles a bit defensively heading into March, but they got to be better on that end of the floor. They got to be more disruptive, I think. And Purdue, you know, with Zach Edey, I think Illinois' biggest issue is guarding the post. You're playing Coleman Hawkins at the 5, great defender. He's better out in space, being a disruptor on the help side. But that's a tall task for him, you know, against anybody. You know, Julian Reese has exposed that a little bit. There's been others. Now you have Zach Edey. So how they defend him, how anybody defends a guy like Zach Edey is always interesting. And I've talked about this before, Dave. I would just like to see them be much more aggressive. To come out, we're not going to, and not be in drop coverage on ball screens, not to be hanging back in the paint, but really be the attacker, be the aggressor from the beginning. Take the fight to Purdue. Take the fight to other teams. The ball goes in the post. I like to see them trapping on ball screens. I like to see them up there with 2 and just see how they do. I think they have the personnel to do that.
One of the things I really appreciate about Brad Underwood is his willingness to change.
He has, yeah.
And to adapt. I mean, you think about his early defenses, and they were all about getting into the passing lanes, about creating turnovers. He has said very publicly, he said it on our air in a postgame show a week ago, that he doesn't care at all about turnovers. Maybe there's a middle ground there. Who knows?
I'd like to see that. Yeah. I would like to see maybe a little bit.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I will get more from Trent coming up a little bit later in the show. We got a great guest coming up next, the first of our 2 really big guests today. The Big Ten Coach of the Year, Ohio State's Kevin McGuff. We're going to reflect on the season to this point, get his thoughts on the postseason road ahead. Stick around. I mentioned it earlier. It bears repeating. Ohio State's Kevin McGuff, the Big Ten Coach of the Year, is voted on by both his peers in the coaching ranks and the media. McGuff and the Buckeyes ranked 4th in the nation entering the Big Ten tourney. Great chance to end up as a number 1 seed when that NCAA tourney bracket comes out 12 days from now. And Kevin McGuff, kind enough to join us. Coach, first time you've won the award, which is fairly remarkable to me, just given how many great teams you've had through the years. How does it feel to be honored in this way?
Feels really good. I mean, this is a great conference with incredible coaches. So to win this award is really special. And really, it's a reflection of my staff and all the great work that they put into this season, and more importantly, our players who've done an excellent job.
Really competitive year in the conference. I don't need to tell you that. We've got three of the top 5 teams in the country, or 2 of the top 5, I should say, 3 of the top 12 teams as well. What are you proudest of with this team to be the outright Big Ten champs in a year where the Big Ten is that good?
Well, I think the thing I'm most proud of is just how much better we've gotten throughout the year. If you looked at where we were in November and December, we just were not as good as I thought we could be. But we've made great progress, and our kids have really committed to the idea of just getting better each day, each week, getting prepared for each upcoming game. And they've just really stayed the course all season about improvement.
Yeah, Coach, it's interesting you mentioned November and December. I remember having you on in November. I think it was actually right before the first game of the year. And you and I spoke about efforts to improve your defense. That if there was an area from a year ago where you felt like you needed to get better, it was on that end of the court. And I think it's fair to say you got significantly better on the defensive end of the court this year. Yeah. Well, to what do you attribute that?
I just think our players' commitment to it. I mean, I've preached it all year that we've got to be focused every single day in practice about getting better. And I tell the players all the time, it's my job to make sure we have the right environment in practice and the intensity and all that. And it's their job in the locker room and on the team planes and in the hotels to make sure everybody's focused on the right things. So it's been like a real collective effort from me and especially our upperclassmen, our seniors like J.C. Sheldon, to make sure that we were really committed to the right things.
Yeah, J.C. Sheldon, all-defensive team. Celeste Taylor gets named as the Defensive Player of the Year in the league. How important was her addition coming over from Duke and, again, a player who had been the ACC Defensive Player of the Year a season ago?
Yeah, and she's a great kid. She's really added to our culture with her work ethic, and just really fun to have her in our program. She's been a huge addition, and I think early on, you could see like how good she was defensively. But as the season has gone along, she's just gotten more comfortable on the offensive end each week, it seems like, and she's really impacting our program in a big way right now.
You mentioned J.C. Sheldon a moment ago. Cody McMahon is a first-team all-conference pick as well. What have each of those 2 players meant to your program?
Well, it's hard to describe what JC's meant to our program. I mean, she's just the way she represents herself, her family, our program on and off the court in such a first-class manner. She's meant everything to us, and I've just enjoyed coaching her so much, and just going to really try to just soak up these last week or month or however long it goes to be able to coach her and just have this opportunity. And then Cody, had a slow start to the season, but boy, coming out of Christmas, she was really locked in and focused every day in practice, and it's great to see her get back to being who she's capable of being, because we can't be the team that we're capable of being without Cody being a big part of that.
Coach, I know that no coach ever wants to lose, but you guys did take an L, obviously, on Sunday in a great game against Iowa, a fabulous team in its own right. You hadn't lost the whole calendar year. Is there any kind of a positive where, as you head into the postseason, where certainly in the NCAA tournament, 1 loss means you're done, is there any kind of a positive as a coach that maybe it helps sharpen your focus and that it reinforces to your team in some sort of way of, hey, we need to be at our very best game in and game out because we're going to be playing elite teams the rest of the way?
Yeah, it's tough. I hate to say that maybe it's good because I hate losing so much. And I think we've been successful because our kids hate losing so much as well. But, there could be something to be said about, hey, just maybe we get back just a little more focus, a little more intensity this week as we prepare, to go to Minneapolis and play against great teams again.
You and I were talking down the line before we started this interview about the tournament in Minneapolis as you prepare to head there, and the fact that every single session for this tournament is sold out. It's been amazing to see this wave of popularity for the women's game, particularly in the Big Ten. What has it been like for you and your players to play in environments like this?
It's been amazing. I'm just so happy for our players across the conference to get to play in these incredible environments. And we've done extremely well here in Columbus. This community's really gotten behind us and just helped create a really, really strong environment here for our basketball games. And, we just played in a great environment at Iowa, and we've been several other places around the league where it's just a lot of fun to see these crowds coming out and supporting our young women.
Kevin, we mentioned this when we talked in November. It seems so far off back then. It's not nearly as far off now. This program has not been to the Final Four in more than 30 years. You were so agonizingly close a season ago. What's your message to this team about what it's going to take for Ohio State to be a team which plays in the Final Four this year?
I think that we just kind of have to stick with what has gotten us to this point, which is we show up and focus on the practice we have that particular day and the opponent that we have ahead. And I think that's the formula that has worked well for us. And I think we'll carry that into the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament.
Kevin McGuff, the Big Ten Coach of the Year. It's got a nice ring to it, Coach. Congratulations on this award. Thanks so much for joining us, and best of luck in Minneapolis and going forward into the NCAA tournament.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on today.
Alone at the top, indeed. Yet another milestone for Caitlin Clark this weekend as she became the all-time leading scorer in both men's and women's NCAA hoops, passing Pete Maravich, now with 3,685 points and counting, as she enters the final postseason of her groundbreaking career. As we told you at the top, she is the unanimous Big Ten Player of the Year, and we are pleased to have Caitlin Clark with us now. It is our big interview. Caitlin, appreciate you doing this. This is the third time you've won this award. It was unanimous. I don't think it's a great surprise to any of us. That being said, though, how does this compare to winning it the first couple of times?
I think it's always special. I think, our team's playing really good basketball, and that always helps when we win these type of awards. But I think the Big Ten has so many tremendous players in it. So anytime you win an award like this, it's obviously very special. And I've been lucky enough to do it 3 times. And, I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for my coaches and my teammates. And Coach Bluter has really allowed me to thrive ever since I stepped on campus. So I'm just really thankful for her, too.
It's been such a remarkable journey here, and I do want to use a little bit of this interview to reflect on it. I want to talk about the milestones first, and we just talked about the one passing Pete Maravich this weekend, Kelsey Plum. I mean, you kind of go on and on, Lynette Woodard. It's been amazing. Seems like virtually every week there's a new one. Is there one of those moments, or maybe it isn't one of those milestone moments, that really stands out to you? Like when you think about this year to this point, what's the moment that is most imprinted in your mind?
That's hard. I feel like there's so many. I think just this past weekend at Carver, being able to be in front of our fans on senior night was super special. And then Lynette Woodard was here. Obviously, I had passed her the prior game at Minnesota. And then obviously breaking Pete's record. And then having Maya Moore in the house. So I think all of that combined made for this past Sunday to be a really special win for us. And obviously beating Ohio State, who already won the conference outright, is some great momentum for us going into the Big Ten tournament. But just being surrounded by people that have supported me so much in my final regular season game at Carver was truly, really special. So if I had to pick one, I would pick just this weekend, Sunday at Carver.
And of course, that came on the heels, too, of you making the announcement that this would be your final year and that you're going to head to the WNBA next year. What were the biggest factors that went into that decision?
Well, it was definitely a really hard decision. And I think the biggest thing for myself was I felt like I'm just kind of ready for a new challenge. And I feel like my game has developed enough to where I can begin to play in the WNBA. Obviously, there's going to be things that for me to learn, and that's what's so exciting. And that's always been my dream. And obviously, there's pros and cons to both, and I would have loved to be able to do both and make our fans happy, make everybody else happy. But I feel like this season has allowed me to have a lot of closure, and just making the announcement when I did, I think is kind of the same, to enjoy senior night, to allow my teammates to enjoy senior night and not distract from them, because 4 other really great seniors that are on our team and who I've been through a lot with, and we've been able to do a lot of really good things. So I think those were kind of the biggest reasons why I felt like it was good to just kind of get it off my chest and then just play free basketball for the rest of the year.
I think any time that you make a big decision in life, whatever it is, right, choosing a college, something like this where you decide to move on, there's a natural reflection that comes along with it, right? I mean, there's an understanding that, hey, this is something now that's going to come to an end, something new that's going to start. As this chapter does come to an end, how much did that decision cause you to reflect on kind of where you've been?
Yeah, I think it has allowed me to reflect a lot. I think the biggest thing is time goes so fast, and it's hard for me to really wrap my head around the fact that I'm a senior and I've played my last regular season game in Carver. Lucky enough, we're going to be able to host 2 more. But I think I'm just very confident and happy with how my career's gone, and that's allowed me a lot of closure and what I've been able to do here. But yeah, it's obviously sad. And I think as time goes on, I'll be able to wrap my head around it more and go back and reflect. Obviously, my main goal is still to continue to win the Big Ten tournament, and then obviously, hopefully win a national title. So it's not too sad yet. I think my best basketball is ahead of me and our best basketball is ahead of us. And I think we're playing really well right now. And that's something about Coach Bluter. She always has her teams playing the best basketball in March. And I think we're just excited.
As you do reflect, though, is there a moment, Caitlin, where you realized in your time at Iowa, this isn't normal anymore? Like, hey, I'm famous. This is different than it was when I arrived here?
I think it's obviously a lot different because when I first stepped on campus, I'm playing in front of cardboard cutouts, and now I'm playing in front of 15,000 people. You can't get a ticket to get in the door. There's people all over the tunnel whenever I walk off, and it still feels like I'm kind of living in a dream, and that's never ever anything you take for granted. And I just feel like I was just that young kid. So I try to make as much time as I can for them. And yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a specific moment. I feel like over this course of this whole entire year, my senior year, the sellouts never get old. The fans never get old. You know, playing in front of those type of environments, that's like what women's basketball should be and will be going forward. And I think that's what we're most proud of.
You know, it's interesting. You talk about the huge throngs. I mean, it really is amazing to see it. I can't imagine what it's like for you, both in terms of being rewarding, but also of being overwhelming. And I'm amazed by the grace with which you handle it. And I think it's an incredible credit to you, the way that you've done this kind of game in and game out. It's so big for all these people watching you. And for you, it's another game, and it's going to happen again the next time that you play. How do you want those young girls, mostly girls, although, you know, it certainly is some boys too, but overwhelmingly girls, how do you want them to think about you, and how do you want them to see you?
I think just as a positive role model, and a lot of my role models growing up were women's basketball players. And I think hopefully I can inspire young boys and young girls to dream to do whatever they want, whether it's, you know, be a basketball player, that's great, or be any athlete, or be a doctor, or be a veterinarian, whatever it is. I think just setting your minds to whatever you want to do. And I think that was kind of my story, is my parents never told me I couldn't do something. I grew up playing sports with the boys. That they never told me that was different. Like, that's all I knew. My dad was my first ever coach, even when I played with the boys. So I think that's just the biggest thing, is like always dream. Like, I'm still 22 years old and I still have so many dreams left to accomplish. And, you know, that never stops.
I don't know if you saw this. There was an open letter in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune this week that kind of went viral. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It was amazing, right? So just to bring people up to date who haven't seen it, it was a doctor, a native of Sri Lanka, I believe, who talked about the way that you and watching you play had connected him to one of his daughters, and that it was something that brought them together and was special. I'm just curious, kind of your reflection on that letter, and then some thoughts on, like, how much responsibility is that? I mean, you know, kind of what are the emotions when you see something like that?
Yeah, I think it really struck me because I vividly remember going to a Minnesota Lynx game with my dad, and it was like eerily similar to me doing that. Like, we stood up and we screamed the whole time. We were catching T-shirts. I remember I got a Rebecca Brunson jersey. It was kind of the same for him and his daughter, and they spent a lot of time and money to be able to go there and support me. So I feel like a responsibility to come out and perform every night and be able to put smiles on people's faces, but also, like, that's just what I love to do. I love to play basketball, and people just love the way I play. And I think that just comes with the fun of the game, but also the way our team plays. We play with so much joy. It's easy to root for us, and you can see how much fun we're having on the court. And yeah, reading that letter was super special. And I think those type of things mean more to me than any record or any award ever would. You know, you can really see the true impact that you're having on people's lives. And whether young or old, you're kind of inspiring everybody.
Really cool stuff. I do want to talk about the team. I mean, you know, let's focus on the task ahead. You talked about, you think maybe your best basketball is in front of you. Your team is coming off a huge win, as you said, against Ohio State. Now you head into the Big Ten tournament. You've won it 2 years in a row. You're still very much in the hunt for a #1 seed in the NCAA tournament. How do you see this week potentially as a launching pad for you guys into what's next year in the postseason?
Yeah, I think we're really excited for this week. We kind of know how the Big Ten tournament goes every single year I've been here. We've played in the championship. So I think having that experience under our belt of you got to play, but then you got to move on and start prepping for the next opponent. You got to take care of your body. But also, I know our fans are going to be incredible. I know it's going to be like Carver up there in Minnesota. So we're going to be very thankful for that. And we're going to need to use it to our advantage, playing the winner of Penn State or Wisconsin. So we'll be challenged right from the start. But I think, like I said earlier, I think we're playing really great basketball right now. Hannah's playing great. Kate's playing great. Gabby's shooting the ball really well. So I'm excited for our group coming off a big win. You kind of just want to keep that momentum going forward. And then obviously, I think taking that into the NCAA tournament too. We want to win the Big Ten tournament and then carry that on over to the NCAA tournament. And, you know, this is the most fun basketball. This is when you need to be playing your best. And I feel like we are right now. And I still think we can improve some. And that's what's so exciting.
Caitlin, I'm going to leave you with this. You mentioned heading into the NCAA tournament last year, an all-time great national championship game. You guys came up on the short end of it. What would it take for this team? What needs to happen for this team to win it all this year?
Yeah, I think we understand how hard it is to get to that point now that we've done it. You need a little luck. You need a good draw. You need to be playing your best basketball. So a little of everything, but also I feel like we are doing that right now. But also you got to be resilient. If you want to make it to the national title game, you got to play about, I think, 6 games to get there. And, you know, not everything's going to go your way. You're going to have a bad shooting night. Your team's going to have a bad shooting night. So finding other ways to win, I think that's going to be really important for us going forward. And just being resilient and going out there and having fun, because you never know when it might be your last time you're taking the court. And I think our group does a really good job of that.
Well, Caitlin Clark, it has been such a pleasure to watch you play, to represent the University of Iowa, to represent the Big Ten Conference. Congratulations on all of your success on this honor today as well. And we look forward to seeing what the postseason holds for Iowa and what your future holds as well. Congratulations on all your accomplishments.
Thank you so much.
Trent is back with me as we wrap things up here on Big Ten Today. We mentioned final week of the regular season. Again, an enormous game coming up tonight with Purdue and Illinois. Interested in who you see is kind of trending up here as we head into this final week and then into the postseason.
There's a few teams, and I think one of these teams, Dave, will make the NCAA tournament. We'll start with Iowa. They won 4 of their last 5. Just a big win over Northwestern on the road. Not many teams besides Chicago State have done that.
Only one team has done it, yes.
They've been tough at home, but I love offensively. They're so good, and especially the trio of guards. Dix went for 23, Sanford 24, Tony Perkins 10 points, 14 assists. When those 3 together are rolling, I mean, I think this team is so difficult to defend. I said it a couple weeks ago. I liked how they were playing. They've proven me right. I'm not always right. I was right there. We'll see if they can finish strong.
Not always right?
No, rarely, actually. You ask my wife, rarely right. But they got a week off, prepping for a big one with the Illini on Sunday.
Yeah, no, they are really playing well. That's a huge game. And
yes.
If you can win that game at home, I think you look at their resume and you look at the quad 1 wins they'd have, I think they have a really good chance to get into the NCAA tournament. Who else then has caught your eye here?
Well, Ohio State was not on my radar at all, okay? But, hey, they won 4 or 5. And you think about who they've beaten: Purdue, at Michigan State, Nebraska. 3 quality wins. They're more balanced now. I mean, they've won without Battle in a game. They've won without Bruce Thornton in one of those games. So Devin Royal's playing better. Middleton's making shots. You know, Jake Diebler, give him a ton of credit. Yes. They're playing great at the most important time of the year.
They went through such a challenging stretch, obviously, and found themselves behind the 8 ball record-wise. But they're an 18-12 team right now, so they'll be a fascinating test case.
Sneak in there and get some more wins.
It'll be a fascinating test case. I know the other one you want to touch on is the team that's going to be the home team in the Big Ten tourney, Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota, they won 3 of 5. Okay, they got Indiana and at Northwestern left. Okay, those are going to be 2 tough ones. But if they can win those 2 games, and just how they play, their physicality on the inside, but the guard play. I go with them, the guard play. Elijah Hawkins has played fabulous recently. Cam Christie has elevated his game. He's playing like he's a first-team all guy in recent weeks. So if they can finish strong, Dave, they're going to be at home next week for the Big Ten tournament. Give another coach, Ben Johnson, a ton of credit for what he's done there. Another team, Dave, I think one of these is going to find their way into the NCAA tournament.
I say this a lot, and I think at this time of year we sound a little bit like a broken record, but we look at these remaining schedules and we often discount the conference tournament. But
That's right.
especially in the case of Minnesota, you know they will have a huge home court advantage. You can make some hay there and really enhance your resume. I know you're going to fly down I-57, get back
Big
in
one
time
tonight, yep.
for that Illinois-Purdue
yeah.
game. Thanks a lot, Trent. Great stuff. Thanks for joining us on Big Ten Today.